Okay, everyone. In this week, I want to do an exercise in the area called motion graphics, okay? Which is a big area that combines doing animation with video, okay? So, what I'm going to do is in the sample files, I have a graphic that we're going to work with today called money.jpg. So let's see, it's on my desktop here. I got a lot of stuff on my desktop, bear with me. So there it is right there, okay? So now I just downloaded this graphic from Google Images. I just searched for money and I found an image that I thought worked. So what I want to do here today is I want to create an actual animated effect with text, okay? And kind of, you know, and make it into something that we can export as a MPEG-4 movie. Okay, so here I have this money graphic here. That happens to be the background image, so I'm just going to double click the lock here and convert it to a regular layer so that I can edit it if I need to. Okay, and I need to create two other layers. Okay, so first layer I'm going to create, okay, is going to be the background layer. So I'm going to drag that to the bottom. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my paint bucket tool. Okay, so there's my paint bucket tool, and I'm going to pick a color out here from my color picker. And I don't know, I'm going to look for like a hunter greenish. Okay, something that you could even pick it out of here if you really wanted to. Okay, but I'm looking for more like a hunter green, something deep and dark. Not too dark like that. Something between Kelly green and hunter green, okay? So there it is. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to just fill my entire background with that color. So right now I'm going to turn off the actual graphic with the money, the bills on it, so I can see the background. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click this and fill that whole thing in, right? Now, once I have that all set up, I think I'm going to create a third layer. Okay, and that third layer is going to be in between the money layer and the text layer and the solid green layer. Okay, and that's going to be the layer that holds my text. So I know we haven't talked much about the text tool here, so I want to talk a little bit about it here today. So the text tool is in that third group of tools on the toolbar here. It's often referred to as the vector tools because the tools here are associated a little bit more with vector graphics rather than bitmap graphics. So I'm going to press the T tool, which is for text, and I'm going to write some text on the screen here. Okay. Now, the way this works is you can use this tool two ways. You can click anywhere and write some text, right? So I'll click right here. And on top, you're going to have all these settings for the fonts. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pull down the top menu here and I'm going to choose a font. Now, when you install Photoshop and you install software on your computer, you automatically get some fonts installed and the system has fonts already. Macintosh versus PC has different fonts, but I'm going to choose a real standard font for this exercise. And I'm going to choose a font which I like to use a lot for this. It's called Impact. Okay, so let's see if I can find it here. So there's H. There it is right there. Okay, let me scroll back down and get that for you. There it is. Impact. Okay. And the reason I'm choosing this font is because in order to make this effect work, we really need to have a font with a really big face, almost like in the fire example we looked at previously. Okay, a lot of fonts have very small faces, but since we're going to be showing graphics through the fonts, we really want to have a graphic that has a large face on it, has a large surface area so that you can actually see the text through it. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to type the word money, right? No, not money, I'm going to do cash. See? Okay, right now I'm not really seeing it, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make my color black here. Okay, the color in the end isn't going to matter. Okay, so I'll say $CA$H. Okay, now right now I'm not seeing it, but you'll see if I select that, I'll see it. Okay, and I'm going to put that right in the middle here. And I'm going to go in and kind of select that. Sorry. Okay, so there's my cash, right? I can see it because I couldn't see it because I have this layer on top of it, right? So now right now I've created this. Now I want to make this kind of big. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch to my move tool, and I'm going to center this like so. And then you can kind of increase the size one of two ways. If I choose the text tool again, I want you to pay attention here, because if you notice how the cursor is this little cursor with a little arrow in the upper left hand corner, if you roll over some text, you'll see that what happens is that changes and that box goes away. Right? So right now I have the box, and what the box means is if I click, I'm going to lay down another piece of text, and it's going to make it on another layer automatically. Whereas when I roll over existing text and it changes, that means I can click my mouse and I can select that text, just like you would in a word processor. Okay? So what I've done here is I've selected this, and I'm going to go on my options again on the top with the text tool, and you'll see I can pull this down and I can increase the font size. So right now I have my font size is 100. Maybe I'll try 150. Nope. Maybe let's try 250. Oh, 250 is insanely, that was 1250. 250. It's pretty good. Okay. I could also, do a edit transform on this and do a scale. Okay. So if I didn't want to play with the font size the whole day, I could pretty much just go in here, and by pressing my shift key, you'll make sure not to distort it at all if that was your intention. Now, I don't want to make it the whole size of the graphic. So let me double click that and accept it. But I do want to make it big enough so that we can see it animate, okay? So that's my graphic right there, right? Now if I turn this top layer back on, you're going to see I don't see anything because the top layer is a solid layer. It has no opacity or nothing on it. So everything, that layer is covering everything else. Yet when I turn this off, I see I have the text layer below, and I have the actual green background that we selected before. Now, in order to make this effect work, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do something called a clipping mask. Okay? A clipping mask. Now, a clipping mask is a little bit different than a regular mask, because what a clipping mask is a clipping mask is based on a vector graphic. Okay? And essentially, these vector tools that we're looking at, text happens to be one of them. Now, in Photoshop, text is treated as a vector graphic, which is why we can scale it and manipulate it without it getting pixelated. Now, once you want to start doing more advanced effects on it, maybe like distortions or filters or something along those lines, essentially what you would do is you would actually go in and convert it to a bitmap graphic, okay, which is called rasterizing it, and then you'd be able to do all the fun stuff that we've been talking about in Photoshop. So even though we're doing stuff on this now without rasterizing the text, there are some limitations to what we can do. But the effect we're going to do is called a clipping mask. Okay, so what I'm going to do is let me pull this out so you can see it. And I'm going to pull down my options on the layer palette here. And you'll see we have this option here, create a clipping mask, right? So when I do that, boom, okay? You'll see what happens is, if you look at the layer menu, you'll see that I get a little, on the layer with all the dollar graphics on it, it sort of gets a little arrow that points down to the layer below. So what it does is it takes this graphic up here, and based on the content of the layer below, it's actually going to clip everything in my graphic here based on what's below. So the only thing you're going to see on the graphic is the text below, and everything else is going to be clipped out, or in this case, kind of like a mask, so that you can see the layer on the bottom through it. So it kind of creates transparency where there's not text, and pretty much takes what's available on top in this graphic and leaves that visible, so it looks like the graphic on top is superimposed into the text. So this is a very popular effect, the clipping mask, and you'll see it being used in a lot of different contexts. Okay. So now that we have this first effect in play, what I like to do is I like to actually go in and kind of stylize this a little bit. Okay, because right now it looks very flat, very 2D. So just going in to my actual cache layer, the text, right? I'm going to add some layer effects to this. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'll go to my effect menu here, and I'm going to do a drop shadow. Okay, whenever you want to, if something's looking flat on your graphic, first thing you want to do on it is add a drop shadow, right? And I have my little preview option on here so I can see it. So already you'll start to see I'm getting some dimension on that. Okay, so it's looking a little bit better, but I want to change it somewhat. I think I'm going to make the angle go that way. Okay, and I'm going to make my distance be a little bit increased. Okay, and I'll make the spread be a little bit more than that. Okay, all right, so the spread, I don't want to go too much, but I am going to make it bigger. We'll make the size a little bit bigger as well. Okay, If I wanted to, I could do one of these contours. I'm a big fan of the double contour, like so. But I think I'm going to keep it straightforward for this example. Just leave the drop shadow like that. Okay? And then, maybe here you want to try to add maybe a glow to this if you wanted to, or an inner glow. Let's try that. Okay? So right there, there's that. And maybe I'll do that in red. All right, so we'll do a little reddish glow. I don't know if you can see that. So inside the graphic, you'll see that's where that's going to show up. So what I'll do is I'll increase the size a little bit. So you see the red is kind of bleeding on the inside there, right? Okay, I can also have it come out from the center instead of the edge. I prefer the edge in this case, right? Maybe I'll add a little bit of a jigger to that. Maybe some range on that. All right, and we can always change this later. We don't have to be tied to it, okay? So that being said, there's the effect we have, okay? So now the next part of this, now that we have the structure of this set up, I want to go in and animate this, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and I'm going to add a nice animation to this, and then we're going to talk about how to make it look really smooth, and then we're going to talk about how to export it. So that's going to be part 2. So thank you, and tune in to part 2, please.